and welcome to another inspiring episode of the What the Tech podcast, where we delve into the world of tech, growth hacking, and entrepreneurship. Now, I'm your host, Troy Vermillion, and today we have a very special topic around mindset. This being the secret ingredient to launching and growing a successful business. Now, the significance of a strong mindset in achieving business success cannot be overstated. Shaped by our beliefs and attitudes, the mindset we have influences our decisions, our actions, and the goals we set. It's like steering wheel for your life that drives your entrepreneurial journey. Having the right mindset is what sets successful entrepreneurs apart. They view challenges as opportunities. Failure is a stepping stone to success and are always ready to learn and adapt. As Carol S. Dweck, the renowned psychologist and author of Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, once said, "In a growth mindset, challenges are exciting rather than threatening. So rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to reveal my weaknesses, you say, wow, here's a chance to grow." So can the right mindset truly be our secret weapon for business success. It can mold us into entrepreneurs we aspire to be. Stay tuned as we delve deeply into these questions with our special guest who has firsthand experience in harnessing the power of a winning mindset to build a successful business. Let's go. I am pleased to welcome the founder of Optimal Performance Academy and the author of a potent book titled The Winner's Code: Secrets of the Winner's Mindset. Now, Kevin has been guiding entrepreneurs to their 6- and 7-figure earning paths and has a wealth of wisdom and knowledge to share with us today. But before we do that, Kevin, I think there's something to be said about moving from Las Vegas to Raleigh. And so tell us, does your secret to success involve trading in your poker chips for barbecue chips?
No, not at all. Unless you're talking about somebody actually spending money, then yes.
I love that. So what did bring you to Raleigh? I am curious.
Well, I lived in Raleigh for 2 or 3 years before, and it was the last time I ever had a full-time corporate America job. And I was a computer programmer at that time, working on a project known as Y2K. So for some of you that are younger, you probably won't know what that is, but for some of you that have been around for a few years, you go say, I remember Y2K. I haven't thought about that in over 20 years.
Yeah. It was supposed to break the internet.
It was supposed to break everything. The airplanes were going to fall out of the sky. All banks were going to go bankrupt. I mean, it was a huge disaster. And I guess they avoided it because nobody lost any money, no airplanes fell out of the sky. But to answer your question, I lived here back in the late 90s, and I lived in Las Vegas for 18 years. So I moved there in January 04, and I left in March of 22. So I was literally there 18 years and 1 month. And the thing is, after living out there for so many years, I came to visit my ailing father in Pensacola, Florida. Who was in the hospital. Unfortunately, this was September of 21, and unfortunately he died a week after I arrived. And then I was thinking, no, I've got a brother in D.C., I've got another brother in Birmingham. So I used to live in Raleigh. Why don't I just go check out Raleigh to see if there's someplace out that I wanted to live, which I did. And then just a few weeks later, I actually moved back across country because I moved to Las Vegas, and I moved back from Las Vegas.
Incredible. Well, at least we know something about Kevin already. He makes decisions quickly, decisively.
And when I decided to move out there, it was like in December of 2003, and it was January 04 when I left. So it was like a month later.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even have a place to live. I didn't have a place to stay or anything. I was moving out there to work with my mentor, and I couldn't get I didn't even get him to answer his phone until I was like 2 hours outside of Vegas. It took me a week to get there. So, I mean, I was coming here completely cold.
Well, welcome to the city. I know you've been here for a bit now, but I appreciate the fact that you made the dive in the deep end. I did the same about 10 years ago, knowing nobody but a few family members just east of the city. We moved here for family reasons as well, just to take care of my wife's aging parents. But we stayed because of all the awesome things we've got in this region, this area. But today we're going to be talking about mindset and what does that mean, and specifically about a winner's mindset. And so, Kevin, you've written a book called The Winner's Code. It's a secret, or the secrets of the winner's mindset. And so I'm very interested in digging into that. And before we do that, I want to maybe touch on the fact that there's some importance about having the right mindset in the first place to launching and growing a successful business. So why don't we start right there, and then we can talk specifically about what those mindsets are, and specifically the one winning mindset.
Well, yeah, in the book, it was actually my third book, but in that book, I talk about the winner's mindset, which is basically what is your relationship with your word, with your intentions, and with the winner's mindset, it's like, how do you always create a win-win situation? Now, this could be a win with your spouse, your kids, yourself. I mean, the person that most people lie to the most is themselves. And there's a whole chapter just based upon what is your mindset with yourself. Are you one of the 7 non-productive ones, or are you on the 8th one, which is the winner's mindset? And with that, I talk about it even, how, what is your mindset at work, as a coworker, as a boss, as an employee. And then there's another section that has how, what is your mindset as an entrepreneur? Like, how do you treat your competition? How do you treat your clients, your vendors, the society? Basically, all of that, because the how we treat others is just a reflection, as far as a business owner, is how you're going to be running your business. And if you're running your business with I want to get as much as I can out of my client, or I'm going to tell my competitors that I'm going to screw them over so I can get their clients, then that's not a way to do business. The good way to do business is to have that winner's mindset, is that collaboration, is that how can I help them win as well. And I've seen this so many times. Even back when I was in Vegas, even after I wrote the book, just how do I always set this up as a win-win? Yeah.
No, I think most people philosophically would say that, especially if they were in a crowd. But how do people with the other mindsets, how do they sabotage themselves? Like, let's talk about that.
Well, the other 7 mindsets that I talk about in the book, and some of them are sometimes they're one level, sometimes one's just even, you go a lot deeper. So I'll go with probably the easiest one that most people can recognize, is what I call the egotistical mindset. That's where I put me first. I don't really care about you. If you win, fantastic. If you don't win, I really don't care. It's all about me. It's all about my ego. But to take that to one more level deeper is I call it the taker mindset. That's the person who's there to just get what they can get, and they really don't care whatsoever. So it's egotistical to a much more extreme. Going a slightly different path is what I call the pretender mindset. That's where I'm going to pretend to be your friend. I'm still going to get what I want, but I'm going to possibly, most likely, even take advantage. I'm going to lie to you so I can get what I want. On the flip side of that, this is the one that I did not come up with, because I came up with 7. And I was speaking with somebody about this, and she said, "Well, you forgot about this one." And so this is the one I would call the victim mindset. That's where like, "Woe is me! Everything's happening to me! Boo hoo hoo! Let's play the little mini violin." Kind of like the victim, there's also what I call the martyr mindset. And that's a person that's constantly putting themselves second and put somebody else first. They're the martyr. They're kind of like a victim. What a mindset that I see a lot now in the world is what I call the revenger mindset. You do this to me, I'm going to do something worse to you. So you see that in wars, or you see that in all kinds of stuff. And then the 7th one is the one that I think is the worst one of all, because I think most people suffer from it. And it's what I call the drifter mindset. It's a person who's just going through life, nothing big is changing and not doing anything. If you look at themselves where they are right now with their relationships, with their finances, with their jobs, with their career, with their business, they're in the exact same places they were 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15, or lo and behold, 40 years or 50 years ago. Now, when I wrote about the drifter mindset, I did not know about a book that Napoleon Hill wrote. And the thing is, when he wrote that book, I think it was either his grandchildren or his great-grandchildren were the ones that published it. So when he wrote, because the book came out like 2 or 3 years, or excuse me, he finished the book like 2 or 3 years after Think and Grow Rich. But the name of that book is called Outwitting the Devil. And it's where he's actually the protagonist is having conversations with Satan and with the devil. And the reason he didn't release it because back in those days people would not have understood it. They just weren't ready for that book. And one of the things that he talks about in that book is that the devil, one of the devil's favorite things in human society is drifters. Is people just drifting through life. And he went very heavy into that. And I do see that the drifter mindset is where many, many, many people are. And maybe they could be doing well financially, but they could be drifting into relationships. They could be drifting with their spirituality, or in other areas of their life. So my thing is to become aware which mindset are you in. Are you egotistical or you're a pretender, and how can I change that to become a winner? Now I will say the drifter mindset is the hardest one to get out of, because if you could be a taker. And all you have to do is, it's like you're on a train going 80 miles an hour down a track. Well, if you happen to go to an intersection, you just go down a different track. So I mean, it's easy. You just change your energy, your momentum. However, if you're a drifter, it's like you got to get that thing started, and that is why it's so difficult to get out of that one. But once you become aware, then start working on your mindsets in any areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I can see that. You don't have any momentum because you've never seriously put your mind and energy towards something. Thus, you're just kind of drifting like in the wind, basically. Yeah. You remember the old. Westerns aren't as prevalent as they used to be, but like the old tumbleweed, right? It's just kind of wherever the wind blows it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're at the mercy of other things outside of your own.
All right. What about the other ones?
Which other ones?
Was there any more? Was that all 7? 8?
There's 8.
Sorry.
Egotistical, pretender, taker, martyr, victim, revenger, drifter, winner.
Okay, you're right. I should have been counting along. Like count. What's the count? Right?
A countdown or count up?
Sesame Street. The count from Sesame Street. So tell me, like, do you find people oftentimes find themselves in multiple ones throughout, their life?
Absolutely.
Or is it that, they spend the majority of their life in one and then maybe have some sort of revelation? Like, what made you start to think about writing a book about this? Because, was it that you were coaching people and helping to try to identify? You had to put a name to it? Like, why?
Actually, how I wrote the book is like I was wanting to write a book about mindset. That was the first thing that came to my mind, and that was and what I did was I got a notepad, and I'm going to talk about something that is called free writing. Now I do this with some of my coaches, or my clients as a coach. Is free writing basically is, and it doesn't matter if you're religious or not. You can say, all I say is just get a piece of paper, make sure you're quiet, that you're in a quiet place, that nobody's going to be bothering you. And this is going to be maybe 30 minutes to an hour that you're going to be doing this. And this is kind of woo-woo. I moved here from Vegas. I was influenced by California. And basically what you do, or what I say you do, is at the very top of the page, you write G equals God, or U equals universe, or S equals subconscious mind. Now, whatever letter you write, it cannot be the same letter that you use for your name. So let's say, for example, I might say S equals subconscious mind. Then I'll write K equals Kevin. And then on the piece of paper, I will write a K, colon, and then I will write out a question. And then I will say whatever comes to my mind from that question. I'll say like ask colon, and then I write out that. And how to get started is like some people say, how do you even get started in something like this? It's like the easiest way to get started is anybody out there. And yes, I'm here always. So and then just get the conversation rolling there, because now what you're going to be doing. You could be saying this to be divine intervention if you're very spiritual. You may say, and that's my subconscious mind, or just the whole universe giving me an answer. So when I was talking about the mindset, I wrote out the 7 mindsets, and then I worked out how all they interacted with each other. So I wrote the outline of the book in in about an hour, hour and a half on just on a piece of paper. And that's when I started writing the book. That's when I went to my Toastmasters meeting, and that's when I talked to my friend at there, and she's the one that told me about the victim mindset. I forgot about the victim. So, but yeah, that's that. And I just felt that. So the book basically was most like, if you want to be spiritual, it was a divine intervention. And then I wrote that book probably in 1 month.
Oh wow, that is incredible. So, do you typically find that for entrepreneurs that they fall into one bucket or the other, and then how do you get them to the winner's mindset? Like, what is the process of doing that?
Well, the main thing is just to, depending how you're looking at the situation, you can look at it like, how can I be a better person and have the other person win without slipping into the martyrdom?
Mm-hmm.
So. And if you're the martyr, it's like, okay, how can I start putting me first? Where they still provide what you need to somebody else. And this, again, somebody could be at work. They could be, maybe they're a taker or egotistical at work, and then at home there could be something completely different, or different situations come up. How are you reacting? And the whole book is to have you come up with, in your mind as to what these mindsets are, and then recognize when you're in one that's not productive. Because the other 7 are not productive. Because either somebody's losing. Either somebody's losing, you're losing, they're losing, or it's the drifter, which is just blah. It's like no space.
So you make the argument that somebody can, depending on where they're at and who they're interacting with, they could have different mindsets in those relationships. So, like, for instance, at home, I may be, an egotistical maniac, but at work, I may be, a victim, like, just depending on how I interact with people. Mm-hmm. And so your argument, too, would be that the winner's mindset is effective not just in business, but in life in general.
Yes. In your romantic relationships, your children or your parents, or say you talk about your in-laws. I mean, everybody talks fun about how bad the in-laws are. How are you in all of those relationships? And then, of course, if you're at work, and how are you with your coworkers? I mean, it could be lateral, it could be up, it could be down. I mean, I've had a job before where I thought I was very good to my coworkers, but my superior people were very bad at being leaders. They were very poor management. I mean, to the point where when I left the company, I left them a 1-star review as far as places to work.
That's a burn.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of, by me doing that. That's not a winner's code. That was more like a revenger.
Right? Yeah.
You did this. I'm going to do this back to you.
That's right. So, what does it take to procure a winning mindset daily? Like, what kind of activities or actions would one take to cultivate that over time? Because I don't imagine it's like, well, now I want to be a winner, like I have the right mindset. There's probably a process of, improving that over time. No?
Oh, I would say yes. And I used to have an accountability partner back in between 2014 to 2019, and her and I, we talked on a weekly basis. Now, at that time, I was in Vegas and she was in Vancouver, Canada, and we would talk. One of the things that she came up to me was, and I think this is paramount with your question right there, is the very first thing when you get up in the morning, ask yourself, what are 5 things that I'm grateful for today? Instead of, it's just coming from gratitude. I mean, I have a ring that I got at a special event. It's like a ball bearing kind of ring. It's like that one right there. And this used to have on as I am grateful for ... on it. And then therefore I would just spin the ball bearing around, and I would say, what am I grateful for today? Well, I'm grateful for my dog. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for whatever it is. And just
it's really hard to be focused on yourself when you're thinking about what you're grateful for. And usually it has something to do, it's outside of you, it's somebody else, it's something that somebody did for you, it's the God that you worship, it's something outside of you typically that you're grateful for. And usually it's something that Well, let's just be honest. Like I am grateful to have a job. Sometimes I think that like I am responsible for that, but somebody gave me an opportunity, right? If that makes sense. Like, and so I'm grateful for somebody giving me the opportunity. I can take it back to the root of something that is beyond my egotistical self, right?
And also the second thing, I guess, would also be kind of what you're talking about. Would be take ownership of that you are whatever the results of whatever you have in your life. So
Okay.
And there's an exercise that I've done in a personal development class. It's like it was called victim responsible. It's like find a place, a time in your life where you felt victimized. And I'm not talking about like something like as hardcore as something like rape or somebody cut your arm off or whatever. I'm talking about like she dumped me or he dumped me. And the thing is once you go through that, all the things of why you're the victim, and then you flip it like, okay, how am I responsible for all of these? Well, I said like, well, she dumped me, blah blah blah, and I said, well, I liked very independent women. I like this, like, so I was the one that chose to be in this relationship. So okay, it's a very interesting exercise to go through when you start looking at where were you a victim, and then how were you responsible for that. It could be an emotional exercise as well.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. And a lot of people don't want to slow down and do that sort of work, but I'm sure that the argument you would make is that, well, if you want to get beyond that, your own limitations, that you've got to deal with that, right? You've got to address it head on. I'm curious, what role does mindset happen for you and maybe in your coaching in dealing with business failures and setbacks? Because those are inevitable. And I think, getting, you get knocked down, but you get up again, right? You got to get up
Absolutely.
again. And that mindset is going to either inhibit or, push you towards, dealing with those things in a way that kind of pushes you into success.
Well, I mean, if you're dealing with like a business failure and such, yes. I mean, the thing is, yes, sometimes businesses will fail. Sometimes you pick the wrong client. Maybe you pick the wrong industry, or the economy's changed. So things will fail. I mean, COVID-19 is a perfect example. So how many restaurants shut their doors because they couldn't handle the fact that they were out of business for a year or a year and a half. So things do happen. But the thing is, it's just like any other kind of rejection. It's just learn from that situation, and then how can you move forward? Maybe with another business or something different. So the thing is, always be learning from whatever situation that occurs. And I don't think anything's ever inherently positive or negative. They're all just learning lessons.
I think that's what really characterizes entrepreneurs.
Well, I will tell you one thing that happened to me, and at that time I was playing the victim. Is I joined the United States Navy when I was 18 years old, and I joined into the very prestigious nuclear power program. So I was going to go to boot camp or basic training. Then I was going to do what's called my A school, and then after my A school, I was going to go to the nuclear power school. This is the whole reason why I joined the Navy. Well, on Easter weekend of 1986, I was with two of my classmates, and one of them starts a bar fight. And I happened to be outside in my car at the time. And it escalated to where I was actually, me and the guy that started, two of us, the Navy guys, were actually put in jail. This was Easter weekend on Friday night. And then I had to go to court on Monday morning, and then they had two charges. One was dropped. One, and I had to pay a $125 fine on the other one. So I go back to the base to go to school. Well, I was already what they call it UA, or unauthorized absence. So I had to go to captain's mast for that. And there were 7 of us that went to captain's mast at that one time. I was number 6. The first 5 busted in a rank, 45 days restriction on you can't leave. You can't leave the area. And then the captain at that, and when I was number 6, he said, okay, don't let it happen again. So he let me go. And then the 7th person was busted in rank and what have you. So I had to file out this thing called a CHIT, CHIT, to stay in the nuclear power program. And they said, okay. And then I also had to maintain a 90 GPA. Well, I missed one too many questions on the final exam. Had an 89.86 GPA, and they said we don't give 2 waivers. You're out. So the whole
Wow.
reason I joined the military on my last day of A school, I'm out. And I looked at it like, what am I going to do? The whole reason I signed up for 4 years was this program. Well, I went into what's called TPU for 3 months, which is temporary processing unit. These are people that are usually are processing out because of medical issue or, or dishonorable discharges, whatever. And guess what? My first duty assignment was on a ship in Yokosuka, Japan. So nuclear power ships in the 80s did not go to overseas ports. Then I stayed in Japan for my second ship. So by the fact that I got kicked out of the program, allowed me to actually see 14 countries and travel the world. So that day, that bar fight changed my life forever, in a good way. So
Wow.
you can never look at your situation like I've heard where a story where a guy had his legs blown off, in a war. He ends up going to the hospital, and he gets helped by a nurse whom he later marries. And he would say, getting my legs blown off was the best thing that's ever happened to me because I never would have met her. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's all perspective. I think life will a lot of times serve you something that you weren't expecting, and depending on where your mindset is at, you can see that as an opportunity. I remember an old story. It was about a sales guy who went to Africa to sell shoes, and he basically came back within a month, and they were going to send somebody else because they just felt like there was such a great opportunity there. And so the guy who was going to Africa was trying to talk to the person who was leaving Africa. And he says to him, hey, why are you leaving? He's like, there's no market for it here. Nobody wears shoes. He was like, and that's it? And he's like, that's it. And so he gets there, and he just has incredible success. And the company says, well, why are you having success? The other guy didn't. He says, it's an incredible opportunity. Nobody has shoes. Right? And it's not probably a true story, but I heard it such a long time ago, and I was like, yeah, it's just, what is your mindset about the opportunity? Is it impossible because, or is it likely because? I mean, depending on how you go and look at it, you tell a very different story to yourself, and therefore, you tell a very different story to, the audience that's paying attention. So.
well, I have a webinar that I do on a regular basis. It's called Roadmap for Business Success. I do call it different names, but there is a quote. There is a quote that I say in that webinar. It's one of my favorite quotes. It was actually it was quoted by a gentleman by the name of Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motors.
That guy. Okay. Yeah.
And he says, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
You're right. Yep. Yep. That's a famous one. And
I
I do
that's
love
a good one.
I do love it because it's true, right? Like it's like whatever it is, it's true. Because your mindset basically plays out however you want it to. I mean, it's interesting to hear like business owners will things into reality.
Oh my gosh! Here's another thing that happened to me. After I did my first business, this was in the year 2000. I was living partly in Raleigh, North Carolina, and partly in Charlotte. And I decided, like, you know what? I kind of want to get into the stunt industry, get into the movie industry. And I've done a couple of things before, mainly on stage. And I was saying, well, let me go check out this Wilmington, North Carolina. I mean, I heard that it's a film town. Maybe I'll move to New York. Maybe I'll move to New Orleans. Or even Atlanta, because those are hot places back in the early 2000s. And I first got to Wilmington. The very first thing I did, I went to a bookstore, because this is 2000. Bought a map. Got a recent Sunday newspaper, which had all the want ads and the housing stuff in there. And I got a roll of quarters because I didn't have a cell phone back then. They didn't exist yet. And one of the first places I stopped, I went to a phone booth on the side of the road. There's no buildings or anything. Or I was on the side of the road. I got out and I started looking at ads and stuff and places to live. And then inside that phone booth, this was a Friday. Inside that phone booth was a flyer. It looked like a handwritten flyer about a stunt show coming on tomorrow at Screen Gym Studios. So I go to the stunt show, met up with an independent stunt troupe, and I was training with them 2 weeks later. So that's the power of manifestation. Like, who would have thought I would have gone to, because I wanted to get the stunt industry, so I would see a show, meet a stunt troupe the day after I got there.
I have to know, what movies have you been an extra in?
I've been an extra in a couple of TV shows. The only mainstream movie that I was doing some stunts in was a Martin Lawrence film called Black Knight.
Okay.
And then all the other films I've done were independent films. And actually, for those of you that are that can actually see my background, you will see like a red H back there. That's a play that I did that was for Hamlet. So where I choreographed all the fight sequences. And as you know, if you watch Hamlet, there's a big fight sequence at the very end between Hamlet and Laertes, because they go for 4 bouts because there's one tie. And I was working with an actor that played King Lear. His name, I forgot his name. He played Laertes. He's a regular guy. The guy playing Hamlet had never held a sword before, and he was left-handed. So like, okay, this is gonna be good. Right-handed versus left-handed. So.
That's so fun. That's so fun. And talk about creativeness. I mean, just the things that people come up with, for just media and things like that. I love a good movie, or a good play, or we went and saw, Hamilton when it was here. We actually went and saw Wicked recently. I'm just always blown away by the talent of these people and the creativity. So it's pretty cool that you were involved with that as well.
Well, I mean, because my background is very varied. This is why I think because I've traveled the world. I've done stunts. I used to be a college math teacher. I've been a computer programmer. I've been a real estate agent. I've been a real estate consultant. I've done a lot of different things, which opens me up to a lot of, helping people in a whole bunch of different areas. And one of the things I've learned the most, especially with the stunt work, is that creativity. Because if you're choreographing a fight for, let's say for film, now because a fight for film versus stage are completely different things. So a fight for a film is going to only has to look good from that one angle, like one camera angle. On stage, it's got to look for the entire audience. So
that's
right.
It's
multiple
people
different
looking at
angles.
it. Yeah.
So I love it. And then I look at the sets. I look at what are the skill sets of the actors, because I've never worked with a stunt double. So what are the skill set of the actors? And then what's going to look good from the audience's perspective? Yeah. Like
speaking of mindset, when you're an actor, you have to almost get into the mindset of the person that you are playing. I mean, that is incredible to me. Like some people I've heard some of these method actors and the way, or actresses, and the way that they take on this persona, almost to the point that it's sometimes toxic the way that they've done it, because the character is so toxic.
Heath Ledger,
Joaquin Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix and the Joker, Heath Ledger and the Joker. I mean, they get into these mindsets and it ruins them almost. But they're so committed to the role, it is crazy. So that you can almost trick your brain into believing anything. And I think that can be in the positive as well, not just the negative.
Correct. Yes. And the thing is, I mean, there's so many books out there, like Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. I mean, there's so many things out there, and if you catch yourself in a non-productive mindset or non-productive emotion or attitude, then how can you actually flip it to something else? And it may require you getting up, going to a different room, and working on it, and then coming back. It's not like you're going to be, a dual personality immediately.
Well, I want to thank you so much. This has been really enlightening for me. You sharing your insights and how mindset can potentially be a game changer into launching really anything, but specifically a growing and successful business. And so it's really been a pleasure to have you here, Kevin.
Well, it's been my pleasure, Troy. It's been real fun. Thank you.
Awesome. And for our listeners, hey, don't forget to check out Kevin's book, The Winner's Code, Secrets to the Winner's Mindset. He's also an entrepreneurial coach and helps a lot of people, so I encourage you to reach out to him as well. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this video or to the podcast, and just make sure that you're plugged in to future conversations like this one and many more around the world of technology. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.